a lot of it's based on corporate IP, so intellectual property rights. What they want to do is they want you to create something. They'll then try and maybe undercut you as a creator. Like you should have seen my original contract. I think I got something like, they were offering me something like 2% of everything that I created if it went on to transformative media properties, which meant, you know, if it went on to be a TV show or whatever, it was some cut through stuff. So the thing is, whenever you're a startup creator, because I talked to Ryan Brown extensively about it because he was working for Marvel at the time, and he said, you're just going to have to take the hit because this is going to get you out there. And I was like, but I've created this, and they're going to whittle me down to 2% of something that I've created. And he was like, yeah, you're going to have to do it. You're going to have to take the hit because this will get you out there, and then maybe it'll give you more work. But lo and behold, the company went bankrupt, and I managed to get the IP back. So, point is that for a creator in today's market, it is an absolute hustle. You're constantly hustling, you're constantly up against people who are gonna like mendaciously lie to you, and so, I mean, like, I was in touch with a guy over Valiant at one point, and I was talking about coming on board for something, and he sent me a contract, and I said, I can't sign that. And he said, right, oh no, get it, you know. And I said, listen, I can't. It's actually ridiculous. He said, not only can we reject your ideas, but if we create an idea that is exactly the same as your idea with small differences, you can't sue us for it. And I was like, so basically, you can steal my ideas, and I'm signing off on it. He's like, yeah, more or less. And I was like, sorry, I'm not signing that. You know what I mean? So it was absolutely, it was some cutthroat business. So, you know, whenever you hear about creators being starkly screwed over the years, like, I'm only really seeing the bottom end of it coming in at this point, but I would imagine there's people over the years who've been just absolutely shafted. And, you know, well, you hear about it all the time. You hear about, like, you know, whether it be, Siegel and, Superman creators as well.
Schuster.
Siegel and Schuster. Ooh, there you go. Siegel and Schuster, notoriously screwed. But this stuff, I mean, if you ever read The Adventures of Captain Clay, you know the business is dirty and has been dirty since forever because it's money men pulling the strings. But nowadays it's not just money men, it's these massive corporations like Disney and Warner Brothers, and they are ultimately who you're beholden to. And a lot of the comic and the things isn't getting created. They're not creating it because they're like, we want to put really amazing art out there. They're creating it because they want to hold on to the intellectual property rights. They want to keep it fresh, you know? So the most interesting place, if you're looking for fresh comic content, isn't really the big two. You will see some art popping up here and there. You're like, wow, that's really good. That's really, it's outside of the norm. But, you know, the most interesting stuff is probably coming out of the indie scene. You know, Image, Boom, smaller companies, they're doing interesting stuff. But I find Marvel and DC to be somewhat stagnant, and that's because they're A, giving no incentives to creators to create anything, and B, completely risk averse. You know, so they don't want to do anything that's going to screw them with the formula and potentially, you know, upset the apple cart. So yeah. Anyway, sorry, I went on a tangent there.
I sat in some of the meetings with the head of management. What was immediately obvious was that they had no knowledge of comics. They had really no interest in comics. They had all come from either the music or the movie scene, and they literally weren't interested in comics. And a lot of them were there to get paid salary until they bankrupted the company. And that seems to be happening quite a lot. Your next move was to Opus Comics.
Yeah, so Opus was another charade. I was just gonna say, I'm sorry, I'm changing experience for you. But so anyway, it was two editors who worked for Heavy Metal, and I'm still in touch with them. They're not bad guys. They're just guys who are part of the business. You know what I mean? And they got in touch with me, and they're like, "Oh, listen, we need somebody to take over Frank Frazetta's Death Dealer." And I was like, "Frank Frazetta's Death Dealer?" You know, because obviously that's an iconic book, and they were like, we need someone to come in right away, which should have been a red flag, you know. But I was like, oh, it's Death Dealer, I'm definitely going to do it. Like, so anyway, they got in touch, and they said, listen, here's the script outline, because all the issues are based on Rosetta's covers that we've got access to. So the interior has to reflect that. So we've got a script outline. So it was completely hamstrung going into this thing. There's no real originality or creativity, and the guy who owned the company was a music guy. He worked with heavy metal, he was in the music business, and he'd segued into comics. So this was all, sort of bizarre, but fine. I thought, well, I've had worse gigs, and they were paying at that point. So I went over to work for Opus, and I'm working through these scripts, and they had this terrible ending that they wanted to do, and I remember fighting with them and saying, I'm not doing that, I'm not putting my name on it. My creative reputation will be ruined forever if I attach myself to that pile of SHIT. So anyway, they were like, right, okay, you can change the end. And I was like, yeah, I'm gonna. So the guy who brought me on subsequently quit the minute I came on the book. And I went, where did he go? So it turned out the company wasn't creative devs and weren't paying people. Surprise, surprise. So I went, right, okay. So myself and the art team were getting paid at that particular moment. I finished out the series, but we didn't get paid for the last 2 books. And subsequently I would get on to Sarah Frazetta. She's the heir of the Frazetta intellectual properties, and I got on to her just to say, listen, thanks for having me onto the book and stuff, and she went, thank God you've taken it over because they were completely ruining it. I wanted somebody to come on who would respect my grandfather's wishes. I'm just sort of writing like Roy Thomas Conan and stuff, and she went, yeah, do that. And I was like, yeah, so no problem, but the way they were writing it previously was kind of like Death Dealer was, a teenage metalhead or something, and it was, I had been told to speed read the issues to get up to spec, and I felt sorry for the previous writer because he'd obviously been given the same mandate I was. He hadn't been given any say, he'd just been told you have to do this, whereas I thought a bit more about it. So anyway, long story short, the book sort of came out, everything came out on time, but the last 2 issues, myself and the team didn't get paid for, and the company subsequently bankrupted. With the guy who owned the company, I think he stole it and then fled. He just fled, completely disappeared off the face of the earth, never to pay me or the rest of the creative team ever again. And I was on this colorist on me around that day, I remember